My name is Sherry. The silence in the room was deafening, the weight of my words hanging in the air like a storm cloud. I sat at the long, elegant table in my parents' opulent mansion in Beverly Hills, the chandelier above casting sharp shadows across the faces of my family. My father, Mr. Thompson, a successful business tycoon with a reputation for being tough and unyielding, stared at me with a mix of shock and anger. His hand was still clenched around the stem of his wine glass, as if he were trying to hold on to his fading authority. My mother, Mrs. Thompson, a socialite who prided herself on her grace and poise, sat with her eyes wide, a napkin twisted in her lap, her silence betraying her inner turmoil. At the far end of the table, my sister, Vanessa, a beautiful and talented actress, sat with her head down, her shoulders hunched. Her face, usually radiant with confidence, now carried a shadow of guilt. The crown of attention that had always surrounded her seemed to tilt, no longer steady. I took a deep breath and continued, my voice steady and calm. Every time you praised her, you erased me. Do you know what it feels like to bring home victories and watch them vanish in the shadow of hers? To be there in every silence, in every gap you ignored, and never once be enough to earn your pride? My father's jaw tightened, a muscle flickering beneath the skin. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The room was filled with the hum of the chandelier, the only sound breaking the tense silence. I thought back to my childhood, growing up in this mansion filled with luxury and privilege. But for me, it was also a place of constant comparison and neglect. Vanessa was the golden child, the one who always shone in the spotlight. Her trophies and awards lined the mantelpiece above the fireplace, each one a symbol of her success. Meanwhile, my achievements were overlooked, my efforts dismissed. I remembered the time I won a prestigious writing competition. I came home, excited to share the news with my family. But when I walked into the living room, it was filled with people celebrating Vanessa's latest movie role. No one even looked up when I spoke. I felt like a ghost, invisible in my own home. As I got older, things didn't get any better. When my mother started having health problems, it was me who took her to the doctor, who sat with her in the waiting rooms, who held her hand when she was scared. But she never wanted anyone to know, and my father never acknowledged my efforts. When my father's business faced financial difficulties, it was me who used my savings to help him. I slipped money into his account, enough to keep the company afloat. But he never asked where the money came from, and he still continued to praise Vanessa for her career achievements. At work, I was a respected journalist, winning awards for my investigative reporting. My colleagues admired my dedication and hard work. But at home, no one cared. My victories were overshadowed by Vanessa's fame and success. I had always been the quiet one, the one who listened more than she spoke. I thought that by being silent, I could keep the peace. But as I sat at that table, I realized that my silence had only made things worse. It had allowed them to ignore me, to take me for granted. I looked around the room, at the faces of my family. They were all waiting for me to back down, to apologize. But I wasn't going to do that. For the first time in my life, I was going to stand up for myself. I leaned forward, my eyes fixed on my father. You ask when you'll be proud of me. The real question is, when will you stop being ashamed of who I am? The silence that followed was absolute. It was as if time had stopped. My father's face drained of color, his expression a mix of shock and disbelief. My mother's eyes filled with tears, and she reached for her napkin. Vanessa sat motionless, her head still down. I knew that my words had hit them hard. I had broken the script that we had all been following for so long. The family dynamic that had been so carefully constructed was now in shambles. I pushed back my chair and stood up. The sound of the wood scraping against the tile echoed through the room. I looked at my family one last time, then walked out of the room without looking back. That night, my phone buzzed with messages from my family. They were filled with scolding and criticism, thinly veiled as concern. But I didn't care. I had finally found my voice, and I wasn't going to let them silence me again. Weeks passed, and the sharp edges of that night began to soften. I found myself sitting on a small balcony in a cozy apartment in downtown Los Angeles. The city lights twinkled below me, and the sounds of traffic filled the air. Beside me sat my friend, Lily, a kind and supportive soul who had always believed in me. She poured 2 glasses of wine and handed one to me. "To new beginnings," she said, raising her glass. I raised my glass and clinked it against hers. "To new beginnings," I echoed. I thought about the decision I had made to enroll in a creative writing course at a local university. It was a path that I had chosen for myself, without the influence of my family. It was a step towards finding my own identity, towards creating a life that was truly mine. As I sat there, looking out at the city, I felt a sense of peace and freedom. I had finally broken free from the chains of my family's expectations. I was no longer the shadow, the quiet one. I was Sherry, and I was going to make my own mark on the world.